Hi everybody, and welcome to a special episode of Fun with Maps. Well, they're all special, but this one is good. We're on site, and it's we got some interesting people to talk to. My name's Dan Hansen, and this episode of Fun with Maps is about. It's a small island, but it's the largest island in Ireland. It's off the west coast of Ireland. It's part of County Mayo, and it's to the west. But let's zoom in a little. We're talking about, of course, Achill Island, Achill. So here's a map of Ireland, and you can see this here. And over in the yellow part here, the different provinces, the counties, you'll see County Sligo and Leitrim and Roscommon and Galway. And we're talking about County Mayo today. So there's Mayo. And way on the west here is the largest island of Ireland. And we're zooming in here. And it's Achill Island. Okay, and we're going to look at the map of Achill Island. There's only one way to get to it. And we're going to see that. There's a bridge. And named after someone. We've got actually some people who are from his museum in Ireland to talk to us today. So let's get started right away with this Fun with Maps episode on Achill Island in County Mayo in Ireland. Okay, let's start wide and kind of drill down to Achill. So this is a map from the 7th century. It was in Sean Duffy's Atlas of Irish History. And it shows provinces. There's more provinces than there are today. Today there's only 4 of them. There's still Munster and Connacht. Up here though would be Ulster and Leinster over here. But we're looking at, and back then there were more provinces. This is what we're going to be looking at here, Achill Island here in County Mayo. So here's another. This is a map from 1871, and you can see it's got the 4 provinces there. Here's Munster, Leinster, Ulster, and Connacht up here. Again, here's Mayo, here's Achill Island. But what's interesting about this old map, it shows the Irish spoken by a majority by color. So this bright red, which includes Achill and here, that's shows that Irish was spoken by a majority of the people there in 1871. This pinkish, little lesser bright red, that's Irish spoken by 25 to 50%, okay, even over here. And in this white area there, the less colored, 10 to 25% or less. So in 1871 here you see on the map, Achill, majority speaking Irish, same with Mayo here. Okay, so here's a CIA map of Ireland now, and you know the 4 provinces here, they're not really outlined, but you can see. So we're looking again, here's Achill, Castlebar, big area in Mayo there, and you can get some idea its proximity to Dublin and Limerick and various places. Okay, so this is a map of the counties in Ireland. Mayo is one of the 32 counties in Ireland. See here where I am, here in Cleveland, Ohio, in the USA, we say the name first and then the word county. So like I'm in Cuyahoga County, but in Ireland they say county first and then the name. So for example, whereas I'm in Cuyahoga County here, but Achill Island is in County Mayo. It's just how they say it and how we say it. Okay, so we've got this province up here of Connacht that we say it's the smallest of the 4 Irish provinces, both in size and population, but it's got 5 traditional counties. Again, the fewest of any of the any province. So we've got Galway, we've got Roscommon, we've got Leitrim, we've got Sligo, and Mayo. And this is what we're looking at, Mayo, with Achill Island there. Here's a Fun with Maps fact. The name Mayo comes from the Irish Maheg, meaning plain of the yew trees. You know, we're going to do a future episode of Fun with Maps on Ireland, and maybe specifically County Mayo, but today we're going to focus on Achill Island. But I did want to say Mayo is the 3rd largest of Ireland's 32 counties in area and 18th largest in terms of population. It's got 726 miles of coastline, so that's about, you can see that, all this coastline. That's about 21% of the total coastline. And you'll also see the other ones with counties with large coastlines are Cork here and Donegal up there. So this really zooms in and shows you Achill. This is County Mayo up here. The peninsula we'll look at, Clare Island, we'll look at all that. But this red area here, that's Achill Island. And you'll see there's only one way to get across there, which we'll talk about. Here's a good map. This is from Achill Tourism. Let's take a look at. So this over here is part of County Mayo, okay, and this is the Koran Peninsula. Here we've got the one and only way over to Achill for the Michael Davitt Bridge, which we'll be talking about. Here's the Achill Sound, Clew Bay. Down here would be Clare Island. We're going to talk about the Holy Well here with St. Dymphna. We're going to see Duggart up here, and Slievamore, the mountain, Keem. A lot of interesting stuff here. So Achill is actually Ireland's largest island, but it's still relatively small. Its area is like 57 square miles, so it's not that big, but it's Ireland's largest island. The population is somewhere around 2,500 people, so not that big and not that populous, but very important. So here's Dublin, here's Achill, okay, Cork, Limerick, Belfast up there. Achill is about a 4-hour drive from Dublin. So if you fly into Dublin, you got about 4 hours here. You go through Castlebar and you get into Achill. Same with Shannon Airport, probably 5 or 6 hours from Belfast up here. So here's Shannon, here's the road from Dublin, and they all land up here in Achill. Some people, you know, when they get to the peninsula here, they want to take this coastal drive here. See in this yellow here, and they come along just to see the coast, and then they come up here and join in, and they connect, go over the Achill Sound and the Michael Davitt Bridge to get to Achill. Other people, maybe in more of a hurry, or they've seen the coastal drive before, they just continue, they go up here, it's a shorter route, still get here, go over the bridge, and they're in Achill. So Achill is attached to the mainland by the Michael Davitt Bridge between the villages of Achill Sound and Pulranny. They first had a bridge completed there in 1887. We're going to talk more about Michael Davitt in a minute or so with our special guests. But here's some other interesting places and facts about as we do the map of Achill Island. So this is a couple different names. It could be called Carrickildevnet Castle or just Kildevnet Castle, but a lot of people call it Grace O'Malley's Castle. It's a tower house. It's a national monument. It's in the southeast corner of Achill, across from the peninsula, which we just saw, the Koran Peninsula. And it was obviously an important strategic site. It protected the mouth of Achill Sound and the passage that connects Clew Bay with Blacksod Bay. So it was built around 1429 by the O'Malleys. The O'Malleys were a powerful seafaring family, and they into trade and traded widely. And it became a stronghold of Grace O'Malley, one of the daughters, who became, you may have heard of her as the famous Pirate Queen. Okay, so Grace O'Malley, or Granuaile, was the most famous of the O'Malleys, and she was born on Clare Island, just to the south of Achill, around 1530. And she was a fearless leader, gained a lot of fame as a sea captain and pirate. Everyone knows Grace O'Malley, or Granuaile. So let's just take a quick look at Clare Island since we mentioned it. It's also historically called Inishclare. So here's Achill. This is what we've been looking at. Here's the Koran Peninsula here. This in red here is Clare Island. It's mountainous, and it's protecting Clew Bay here and Mayo, and that's where Grace O'Malley was home, and I think she's buried there too. There's only 138 or so people living on Clare Island according to the census. So here's a fun with maps fact. James Joyce, right? James Joyce used the legend of Grace O'Malley, or her Grace O'Malley, in the 1939 novel Finnegan's Wake. So there's Clare Island in respect to Achill Island. So this is a photo of Clare Island in Clew Bay. Okay. Another fun with maps fact, there's a great song by a band called the Saw Doctors. I really like this band. I really like the song. It's called The Green and Red of Mayo. And in it, one of the verses, they mention Clare Island and Grace O'Malley or Granue Island. I won't sing it. I'll spare you that. I wouldn't do that to you. But the verse goes like this. Oh, take me to Clare Island, the home of Granuaile. Its waters harbor fishes from the herring to the whale. It's a really good song. You should check it out. It's the Saw Doctors and the Green and Red of Mayo. So one more quick look at the area there before we get back to Achill. So Achill's up here, right? And to the south we'll see is Achill Beg Island or Little Achill. Here's Clew Bay. Here's Clare Island, which we just looked at. And here's some other islands, Inishturk and Inishbof and Inishsark. So here's some of the other islands in County Mayo. Achill up here, Clare there, Achill Beg there. Okay, back to Achill. So one of Achill's most famous historical sites is that of the Achill Mission, or the colony at Duggart. And in 1831, the Church of Ireland, they founded a mission there with schools, cottages, and all that. It's next to, see this mountain here, that's Slevamore. It's about 2,200 feet tall. And on the slopes here is an abandoned village called the Deserted Village. Okay, and it's thought to be a remnant from the Great Hunger, in 1845 to 49 on Gorta Moor. So right there in the Deserted Village, there's about 80 ruined houses, and for many years people lived and farmed in the village there. Then in 1845 the Great Hunger struck in Achill, just as it did in the rest of Ireland, and most of the families moved to the nearby village of Duag, which is on the sea, and others emigrated. But when they moved there, they could at least get fish and shellfish for food. But the village got completely abandoned, and that's why it's called the Deserted Village. Another site in Achill, Kildamnate on the southeast coast. Remember, I told you about the Holy Well. That's named after Saint Damnit, or what we would call Saint Dymphna, and she founded a church there in the 7th century. Dymphna fled to Achill to escape her tyrannical father. She established a church there, and this is a painting of her father, the martyrdom of Saint Dymphna. And there's that holy well we saw just outside the graveyard there. Okay, so let's look at this map here. So here's the mainland, County Mayo. Here's the Curran Peninsula, which we saw. Achill Beg Island, Little Achill there. The Holy Wells down here, the St. Dymphna. Here's Achill Sound. And you'll have the Michael Davitt Bridge here, connecting Achill to the mainland. Duggart up here. Here's the mountain we just saw, Slevamore. Keel. Here's Keem. Keem Bay, they say, is one of the most picturesque bays in Ireland. It's accessible by road, but it's a twisting clifftop route on the side of this Croaggan, I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sure, mountain. It's pretty much uninhabited. There is a former Coast Guard station there, but that's where Keem is. So remember we saw Achill Beg Island here, Little Achill. It's just this small island at the southern tip here of Achill, and its inhabitants were resettled on Achill in the 1960s. One of the things that's there is a plaque to Johnny Kilbane on Achill Beg, and they erected that to celebrate 100 years since his first championship win. I have to digress here because Johnny Kilbane is one of the most famous people of Achill lineage. So he was a featherweight boxer. He held the world featherweight title from 1912 to 1923. That's the longest period in the division's history. He was the second longest world title holder in boxing history, behind only Joe Louis. So his family was originally from Achill in County Mayo, and then they moved to Cleveland, Ohio in the U.S. here. So this is a statue in Cleveland. It shows three aspects of his life. This is in a place called Battery Park, the west side of Cleveland, near where he lived. And this is him as a poor kid. This is him as a boxer. And this is him later in life as a municipal court clerk in the Ohio Senate and all that in politics. So here's an interesting story. In 1912, Kilbane won the featherweight title. It was a 20-round match in California. When he returned to Cleveland, it was on St. Patrick's Day, believe it or not, he was given the greatest welcome ever given to a native Clevelander. More than 100,000 people turned out for it. So this is 1912, and 100,000 people showed up on St. Patrick's Day to welcome Johnny Kilbane back after winning the championship, which he held for 11 years through numerous fights. So, like I say, then, he later became he had a gym, he served in the Ohio Senate, and acted as clerk of courts, Cleveland Municipal Courts. Some people say Johnny Kilbane. Over here we say Johnny Kilbane. So here's another fun with maps fact. You know the term boycott, right? It's named for this guy, Charles Boycott, 1832, 1897. He lived on Achill. He was an unpopular, to say the least, landowner. So he was an English land agent, and he was ostracized by the local community, and that's where we get the term boycott. So it was in 1880. There was a campaign for what they called the 3 F's: fair rent, fixity of tenure, and free sale. And local activists of the Irish National Land League encouraged the employees of Boycott to withdraw their labor, and they began this campaign of isolation, which we now call a boycott. So that's Charles Boycott. That's where we get the name there. He lived in Achill. Another Cleveland connection I want to tell you about. There's so many with Achill, as we'll see. So this is Nancy Corrigan, 1912 to 1983. She trained as a pilot in Cleveland while working as a nursemaid and fashion model in 1932. So she became a successful instructor and commercial pilot, and even back then, especially back then, it was very unusual for women to be involved in such matters. So she was born in Owenduff in Achill and emigrated in 1929 at the age of 17. She sailed from Cork to New Jersey and then came here to Cleveland, Ohio, and she became a nanny for a wealthy family in Shaker Heights. And she got into flying. It was 1932. Very uncommon for women and also expensive. So she was only making about $10 a week, and a pilot's license itself was about $700. So she took on modeling to subsidize her hobby, and she qualified as a pilot after only about 4.5 hours of flying, which is really fast, but because she didn't have much of a budget, she couldn't afford many more hours of training. So when the U.S. went into World War II, she became a trainer to fighter pilots and air cadets in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And after the war, she became only the second woman to earn a commercial pilot's license in the U.S. So we see this here. This is the International Women's Air and Space Museum here in Cleveland at Burke Lakefront Airport. There's a special exhibition there about Nancy Corrigan called The Model Pilot. Also, here's another fun with maps fact. The Martin McDonagh movie called The Banshees of Inisherin was filmed on location on Achill Island and also on Inishmore in Galway. But here you can see, we talked about Keam, and here's Kiel and Duggart up here, and the Slievemore Mountain, and down here's where we cross the Michael Davitt Bridge. So here's a lot of the scenes from the movie that took place in Achill. Okay, so once again, the only way to get to Achill, unless you want to swim, is to go over this bridge here. Okay, here's Palrani, here's Achill Sound, and this bridge is the Michael Davitt Bridge. So here's a picture of Michael Davitt. We're going to hear about him from some real experts. But so Michael Davitt and Charles Stewart Purnell formed the Land League at the end of the 19th century to abolish landlordism in Ireland and enable tenant farmers to own the land on which they worked. But let's hear it from some experts here. A little more about Michael Davitt because that's the only way to get onto Achill Island is through the Michael Davitt Bridge. As we mentioned, with Achill Island, there's only one way in, one way out, and it's over this bridge. And it's named Michael Davitt Bridge, and you're probably wondering who Michael Davitt is. Well, we have two of the best people in the world to tell us about that. First, we're going to hear from John Reed from the Michael Davitt Museum in County Mayo. So Michael, tell us, who's Michael Davitt?
Michael Davitt was born in the small village of Strait, right in the heart of County Mayo, and he was born in 1846, a seismic year right at the start of the Great Famine or the Great Hunger. His family were evicted when he was 4 years of age, but this was only the start of Michael's misfortune. They were forced to immigrate to England, to Haslington, to a small town in Lancashire. Michael was forced for economic reasons to work in one of the textile mills there. Would you believe he lost his arm in a factory accident at the age of 11? One good outcome from this was that he got an education, and once he had his education, he really put it to good use. In his late teens, early 20s, he was a committed Fenian, a staunch Republican, a member indeed of the Supreme Council of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, an organisation dedicated to the establishment of an Irish Republic by force of arms. He was eventually captured and served a lengthy sentence for his activities. He was shipping guns back to Ireland, among other things, and it must have been very traumatic because he had to engage in long periods of solitary confinement and hard labour. But he emerged, as he says himself, a much stronger figure and a greater threat to the British Empire than when he went in. But once he left prison gives you time to think. Once he left prison, he thought about different ways he could solve Ireland's problems, be it land or self-determination or anything else. And he turned to pacifism and liberal democracy to receive his aims. He goes back to Ireland to discover little has changed in the 30 years that he's been away. In fact, there was another mini-famine there in the 1870s. Landlords still ruled the roost. Tenants had no rights, they had no ownership whatsoever. So he vowed to get rid of the landlords, and he does this by setting up an organisation called the Land League. And the Land League's aims were, in the short term, to improve conditions for the tenant farmers, but in the long term, to rid the country of landlordism. And this he done thanks to the pressure he put on with these peaceful protests. Now, the Land League was at its height from 1879 to 1882. In subsequent years, thanks to the work of Davitt, land laws were brought into effect, which in effect changed the whole land tenure system. Tenants could own their own land. Landlords, albeit with compensation, were forced from the countryside. And we often say this was a precursor to the independence movement, which happened a generation later. I should also mention Davitt was very progressive on women's issues, and at his instigation a ladies' land league was set up. So women become politicised in Ireland for the first time. The Ladies' Land League was set up in New York, but it became very active in Ireland when all the leaders of the Land League itself were imprisoned. They kept the show on the road for a few years, and these brave women went on to be suffragettes afterwards. Some of them got involved in the national question and the national movement leading up to 1916. So that in itself is very important. In subsequent years, Davitt turned his attention to international affairs. So he travels the world as a political activist and an international humanitarian. He visited America on numerous occasions. Several times he visited Cleveland to connect with the Irish community here. Cleveland was a very large Irish community, very committed to Land League objectives, completely committed to self-determination for Ireland. So Davitt was very much at home here, and the community here were very supportive of what was happening back in Ireland. But Davitt had an eclectic group of friends, including people like Theodore Roosevelt and Mark Twain. He was a journalist, a freelance journalist. He travelled the world covering wars and pogroms and all sorts of traumatic events. He became a politician. He was a patron of the Gaelic Athletic Association. He was a patron of Glasgow Celtic Football Club. But I I suppose his frenetic lifestyle, allied to all the time he spent in prison, meant his health declined rapidly in latter years, and he eventually died at the age of 60 in 1906. But like all of us, David had a special connection with his home place, and he was eager that he would be buried in Strade, and he got his wish. Now he had left Strade on a full-time basis at the age of 5, but it never left him. It never left his heart, and so he's buried behind, as Yvonne will explain to you, he's buried behind the museum. The museum is the church in which he was baptised way back in 1846. So there's a special authenticity about that. His homestead is up on the hill, only a few hundred yards away. So the whole story is encapsulated there, and the site includes a large friary as well, which was something that Michael Davitt visited and on a regular basis. So that's the story of Michael Davitt in about 5 minutes, I guess.
So no wonder they named a bridge after him there, and all these important historical figure that
Mayo's
a lot of
finest.
people didn't know about.
Absolutely.
And so a little to the east of this bridge, that's where Strade is, right? It's to the east in County Mayo, and we have Yvonne Corcoran Loftus, who's the curator for the Michael Davitt Museum. Yvonne, tell us about the museum, where it is, what we can see.
The museum is situated in a small rural village called Strade in County Mayo. The collection is housed in a magnificently pre-penal church over 300 years old. Now the church itself has huge historical significance because Michael Davitt's parents were married in this church, and Michael was also baptised in this church. Now the whole story of Michael Davitt is actually encapsulated in one area, and because we have his collection in the museum, and a lot of the artifacts have been donated by Michael Davitt's family themselves, by his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren, and Michael is also, his final resting place is at the back of the museum.
So do you think that in Mayo and in all of broader Ireland, do people know more about Davitt? Because I don't think he's very well known.
We personally in the museum think he's an unsung hero in Ireland, but we in the museum see him as one of the most famous sons of Mayo of the 19th century. He paved the way for the 1916.
Right. So if, we have this direct Aer Lingus flight now from Cleveland to Dublin, and a lot of people are visiting, and I know it's a long ride, up to 4 hours to Achill and all, but on the way, Strade is on the way.
Yeah, Strade is about an hour away from Achill, but I'll be honest, the story of Michael Davitt is so incredible. We would encourage people to come to the museum, see for themselves. We offer personalised tours to every visitor that comes into the museum. We are open 6 days a week from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and it's actually a very reasonable entrance fee. It's only €8 for an adult, 3 for a child, and we do family tickets for €20. And you could be there for an hour, you could be there for 2 hours, depending on how much history you want to hear. But it's a fantastic story.
So if people are planning their trip, is there a website or something they can go to?
Oh yes, we have, and it's www.michaeldavittmuseum.com.
That's easy enough to remember. Okay, well now we know who Michael Davitt is. Now we know how to get over to Achill Island from the mainland, and on our way there, we've got to stop at the Michael Davitt Museum. So we've been talking with John Reed and Yvonne Corcoran Loftus from the Michael Davitt Museum in County Mayo.
We would be delighted to welcome you all to Strade. Look forward to seeing you all.
So that's a lot about Achill Island. You're probably wondering, you know what? There's so many places we've covered in Fun with Maps, and Achill is a pretty small island, and we could have looked at bigger areas in Ireland, even County Mayo. But what's the connection here? Well, I have to tell you, I live in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States, and 20 years ago, the island of Achill and the city of Cleveland were twinned. They became sister cities, and it's a big deal. And we just had a 20-year anniversary celebration where about 30 people from Cleveland went over to Achill to celebrate, and about 30 people from Achill and Mayo came over to celebrate on this side of the Atlantic. So it's a big deal. And, there's a lot of Irish people in Cleveland, and about maybe 80% or more are from County Mayo. And a significant portion of those are from Achill Island. So Achill is near and dear to our hearts here, and with the Johnny Kilbane statue and all, and I'm looking forward. We have a direct flight from Cleveland to Dublin now. I'm looking forward to get to the Michael Davitt Museum on the way in, and I hope you learned a lot and had as much fun learning about Achill Island and some of Mayo, and even Strayed, where the Michael Davitt Museum is. So until next time, I'm your host, Dan Hansen. Keep on having fun with maps.